I'm Greg Nicholson. I want to welcome you to MBK Lounge. As you guys all know, this is a show about men, created for men. This is where we talk about stuff that we really need to get into. Sometimes you'll like it, sometimes you won't, but it's always going to be good for you. Today we're going to talk about anger, but not just anger by itself. We're going to talk about resolving anger. And there's a difference. The reality is that we've been created in God's image. And since we've been created in his image, there are some things that we have characteristically that are like him. You all know that, God has shown anger. There's different situations where anger is in the Bible, but the difference is that when you have anger or show anger, you shouldn't sin. It says in James 1:19 that we should be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Ephesians 4:26 talks about being angry, but don't sin. So anger is something that can be used, should be used for unrighteousness or wrongdoings, but fellas, y'all all know that that's not how we always use it. And it leads to abuse, it could lead to strife, and many situations, too many situations, because we just are out of control with it. So today, my guests and I, we're going to talk about resolving anger. They're going to talk about what they've done, the steps they've taken, and hopefully by the end of the show, matter of fact, by the end of the show, you're going to be in a much better place when it comes to resolving anger. So sit tight, and we'll be right back.
Check out Divine Cuts in Newcastle, Delaware, promoting a family, faith-filled environment. Call or book your appointment online today.
Hello, I'm Robert Hawkins, Senior Counsel at Hawkins Counsel Group. We're a full-service law firm with a focus on excellence and service to our clients. Our practice areas include intellectual property, which includes patents, trademarks, and copyrights. We handle both commercial and residential real estate transactions. We help you with your business formation for both for-profit and not-for-profit entities. We do estate planning, including wills, trusts, medical directives, and power of attorney. Our practice also includes licensing, contracts, mediation, and more. Even if you're not sure we handle your area of need, give us a call. We will access our network of attorneys on your behalf. Call us anytime at 302-635-1511. That's 302-635-1511. Or visit our website at hawkinscounselgroup.com.
Hey, welcome back to MBK Lounge. We're talking about resolving anger. Let's bring in our first guest, Brother Rick Edwards. Hey, man, how you doing?
All right, Greg, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. Glad that you can join us in the lounge. We're talking about resolving anger. You know what unresolved anger could be like. And with men, it could lead to a lot of stuff that we really don't want. So talk with us a little bit about how you've managed anger.
Well, I first had to recognize that I had a problem. And when I was young, I got into fighting, and it progressed from there to cussing. Ooh. And, I thought that I got things under control. And then I got married. And being married and with someone constantly, I found myself not taking advantage, but not recognizing the relationship that we had. And I realized anger is all about me. It's driven by my thoughts, my judgments, my reaction to things. And anger is driven a lot of times by a threat on us. Either it's something that we don't like, we think we're right, we're prideful, all those things play into it. And, I recognized that the most precious gift that God had given me was my wife.
So obviously, at some point, you recognized that you had to get it under control.
Yeah.
But was there was there a teaching or some other occurrence in your life? Well, you know, it'll be up to your discretion how much you share, but was there something that really made you say, okay, I've got to make a change, and I've got to make a change now?
Well, certain instances occurred that really highlighted the problem.
Right.
And I knew that I was a Christian.
Right.
But I also knew that I wasn't walking the walk. And, you know, the Bible talks about renewing your mind day by day, and that comes from reading the Word. But it also says in Colossians that our bodies, our human spirits are renewed day by day in the knowledge of the Word, and that we have the ability to change our physical nature to coincide with the spiritual. And it's when I recognized that I needed to start applying that, that I really started to take control. You know, I prayed about it, but God isn't going to fix my anger problem.
Okay.
The anger problem is mine, and I have to fix it.
So it's interesting because what I was thinking while you were talking is that there is a component of resolving anger, right? Really not allowing it to be used outside of where God has really given it to us to be used when there's a unrighteousness or wrongdoing, right? But what other resources or other things have you used or put in place to help you, move along the resolving anger spectrum?
Probably the biggest thing that I've applied is to not react as fast.
Okay.
Stay calm, be at peace, and allow things to calm down. Don't react in the heat of the moment, because that's when the anger is going to show up. And by delaying that immediate angry response and just quieting down, I was able to start to get control over it. And it still flares up, even today. I mean, this morning before coming here, I had an opportunity to lose it.
Yeah.
You know, I was working on the computer at home. Everything was going fine, then all of a sudden I lose my internet connection. I lose all the TVs in the house. And I've got a group of guys outside the house that are putting in a new line for another TV service.
Of course.
And mine goes out. So I talked to them, and they said, no, we didn't touch it. So I said, it's just a coincidence, huh? And I turned around and walked away without going any further with them. But then you got to get on the phone and deal with your own service and go through all the timing that takes. And I just had to remind myself, stay calm, keep quiet, don't allow my voice to get high, to get loud, and because as I do, I'll start to get into the anger. So it's all about self-control. Yeah,
and what it comes down to, aside from prayer and seeking His Word, there are some decisions that we have to make, and without us making certain decisions, then it could get out of hand.
Yeah.
I imagine you've known yourself for a long time, right?
Sure.
And with that, you know that there are certain triggers, there are certain situations. There's a book here, it's called Letting Go of Anger, the 10 Most Common Anger Styles and What to Do About Them. And it talks about, there's 3 major categories. One is masked anger styles, where it's where you are angry about something, but you act like everything is cool. There's the explosive anger styles, where things don't go your way. This morning you could have been explosive with your anger and really going off on the guys that were outside. And then there's the chronic anger style. And that's where people are just habitually or just angry all the time about everything. And the masked anger style, from my reading, is one that sometimes leads to, not that the others don't, but leads to anger lingering. Because the other person or persons don't even know. So I don't know if that's your style, but what are your thoughts on helping people not allow anger to be put in a place where I'm angry with you today, and now it's going to be a week and 3 weeks, and et cetera?
Well, when I say, react quietly and not allow the emotions to take over in that moment, that doesn't mean, and that could lead to masking. So it doesn't mean that you just walk away and never deal with it. Because if you don't deal with it, it is going to mask and it is going to build. So you come back to it after things are calm and you can talk about it reasonably, and then you deal with it so that it doesn't hang around and linger. I was a masker and I was an explosive.
Okay.
I've done both, and I've put holes in walls, and I'd slam the door, leave the house, and go off driving, take it out on my cars. So I think, I've probably experienced the first two. I don't know that I've ever experienced the third one.
Right.
But I go back, when I first started, I talked about my wife, and I found that the anger showed up more at home than it did on the job, or that it did in any other circumstance.
Now, do you think that was because of the kind of relationship, whereas in the workplace, they're work associates, they're your colleagues, maybe there isn't as much at risk emotionally versus at home, or were there other reasons that you think that was the case?
I think you're on guard when you're outside of the house.
Okay.
And you purposely control yourself.
Okay.
When you're in the house, you're comfortable, you're in the environment that you've created, and you kind of let your guard down, and you take advantage of things.
Yeah.
And I mean, an argument can start just by saying something in the wrong tone. And when my wife would react to that, then I would react, and that's how the argument and the fight would start, or getting angry and loud and so forth. And both of us have learned to just let it go and then come back to it if we need to.
Now, it's interesting. I know a little bit about you. We know each other off the set. This isn't our first time meeting. And you talked about how both of you have realized, your commitment to not allowing anger to get in the way.
Sure.
When was the last time you think you had an argument or had anger in your relationship?
Well, it's been years, I think. One quote has been something like 25 years. I don't know if that's
that's the quote I think
accurate. But, I mean, we have disagreements.
Yeah.
No doubt about it, but we don't argue about it. It just, I'm thinking about just in the last several days, had an instance where we were sitting at the table talking, and she asked me a question that I didn't have an answer for.
Right.
She asked it again, and I said, I don't know. And I said it in a way that kind of could have, tripped the switch.
Right.
And she just got quiet and kind of shut down, and I recognized that that's what she was doing,
right,
and I recognized what I had done. So we don't allow it to escalate.
Yeah, and I think what I'll say is that, and you just said it, you're going to have some disagreements, but anger is something that can linger. And from what I hear you saying is you're making certain decisions.
Yep.
There's certain guardrails you're putting up. You're seeking the Lord, and it's a journey, and it's been something that you guys have decided we're not going to let it take control of us. So
it's all within our control. We can't look to God to fix it for us. That's not His job. It's our job to take control of our lives and our physical being. And if we don't do it, and if we don't recognize that it is within our control, then we'll never get a handle on it.
Brother Rick, well said, man.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming into the lounge.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, look, fellas, and anybody else that's watching, we're not done yet. You already know that we have to make different decisions, but stick around so you can hear a little bit more about how to resolve anger. Stay tuned.
Don't Judge Me Productions, bringing your creativity to life. We offer a variety of services in the areas of photography and videography. Videography services include weddings, music, commercial promotional materials, and much more. Photography services include engagements, weddings, family events, and much, much more. Contact us today by phone or email at don'tjudgemeprod@gmail.com. Be sure to like our Facebook page and follow us on Instagram at Don't Judge Me Productions.
Welcome back to the lounge. We're going to keep things moving. Let's bring in our next guest, Brother Ron Jones. Welcome to the lounge, man.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome, man. I'm glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
You ready to break off and share a little something for the guys?
I am.
Well, look, you know we're talking about resolving anger. And it's not something that's just about men, but we're in the lounge. And this is something we really want the guys to understand, because there are some men out there that it's just out of control. It's taking control over them and all the circumstances in their life. And this, hopefully we can help them, you know, not walk into some of the strife or walk away from some of the strife that they have. So share a little bit, you know, of your journey with anger. Let's start right there.
Oh, it wasn't a fun trip. Let's just say that. Not a fun trip. Anger is, with me, was something that I allowed to get out of control. You can allow anger to go as far as you want it, but you have to have control of it. And at times, I was out of control with it. So it wasn't, it had to come down to the point of, for me to get it under control, was to recognize it first. Recognize that there was a problem. And then recognizing what the problem is doing something about the problem. Mm-hmm. And kind of for me, what I had to do was, I had to, after recognizing that I was the problem and how the problem stemmed in my life, I had to go get help on it. And which I was pride kind of stepped in, because like, I don't need no help. You know, we do that. I don't need no help. I got
what we do.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, I don't need to, you know, something happened, I don't need to go to the hospital. I'm good. You know what I mean? It was kind of like that. It was kind of like, so I was kind of prideful with it. But in the same token, I knew I needed to get help. Listening to Pastor Jerome speak on Sundays, and we can always find ourselves in what's being preached. Mm-hmm. And he talked on it at one point about anger, and we as gentlemen, or even women, we know where we are. Mm-hmm. We know who we are. Nobody has to tell us. We find ourselves through his word. We find where we are through his word, and we fix it, if you want to fix it.
But now, here's the thing, though. We know ourselves, right? We know the things that we say and do, whatever. But I imagine that, I don't know if I know really how you made the transition from this is who I am, this is what I do, to the guy who's sitting here saying, I don't allow anger to be in control of me anymore. Like, how did you make that transition? What, you know, you could share as you will, but was it an incident? Was it a situation? Was it something you read in particular? But how did you say, I need to really change what anger is doing to me and those around me?
By listening to other men, listening to other women. It doesn't matter who it was that was speaking. It was just knowing that, listening to other people's experiences and examples of what they've done, it caused me to want to change. Because, see, the thing is, a change has to be made. You have to want to make a change. It ain't just going to happen. You know what I mean? And we can go and pray to God and ask God to do this and do that for us, but in the same token, God equipped us to do some things. There's some things we got to do.
You like make a decision.
Yeah, like make a decision. You know what I mean? So I had to make a decision to stop living the way I was living, stop reacting the way I was reacting, because I was never thinking about what I was doing. I just would react to what I was to whatever came upon at that point. I would just react.
Right.
So it was never a thought to what I was doing. It was just doing it.
Okay.
And that was the difference. I had to start thinking. I had to step back, and I had to realize, like, hold on. You said you wanted to change. You're not changing if you're doing the same thing you've been doing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I had to step back, and I had to think and just meditate within myself. I wasn't allowing myself to do what it wanted. It's
interesting, because I have read, multiple scriptures on anger to try to understand it. And I think, to your point around, it's not that the Bible isn't enough, but we're co-laborers. There are things that we can read and understand, and then we have to decide. And I know that there are some situations that you can be in, because when the triggers, somebody starts pushing your buttons, right?
Right.
You have a decision to make where you might decide, you know what, I'm not going to say anything, I'm just going to listen, right? Or you might decide, you know what, I'm going to walk away, take a time out, then come back later when I'm a little more cool about it. One more. Or you'll say, okay, before I react, is what I'm getting ready to say going to help or hurt? So have you done any of those, or are there other steps that you've kind of put in place to help you when you see anger building?
I've done all those. To be honest with you, I've done them all. I've done them all. The best thing for me, because of how my anger was like I just kind of thought I couldn't control it. I just kind of thought I was out of control. So I had to go get help on it. I had to go and see some peoples, if you know what I mean. So and the person that I went to go see was actually the same way that I was. So I was able to relate to what he was saying, because he said some things to me at one point when I went to go see him and I could have got angry. I should have got angry, but I didn't. You see what I'm saying? I didn't. I mean, I was kind of like, hold on, bro.
So he was further down the road that you were on, except he made the transition to wanting to do better.
Yes.
So he kind of understood where you were coming from.
Right.
Okay.
And he kind of like, because I kind of like, he was saying some things, and I got kind of angry, right? So I stood up. I was in his office. So I stood up, and I was ready to walk out, right? And he's like, hold on. He goes, Ron. He goes, you sit down now. And guess what I did? I went right and sat down, dude. But any other time, I would have reacted. You know what I mean? But I was like, you know what? I have to make a decision. I made a decision. That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Me coming here and me acting the same way does me no good. So if I wanted to get help, I had to do something different.
Well, so it sounds like you said a couple times you had to see some people, right? And you talked about the word. What other resources? I see you brought a book with you, because sometimes unresolved anger leads to bitterness.
Yes.
There's also a big unforgiveness component to allowing anger to go unresolved. So I know you have this book. I don't know if you have other resources, but there are things that you've used to help you. What are some resources? There's a guy out there who right now is going, I hear you, but what else can you share that may help?
Well, you have to. I've learned that. Read this book that I've been reading, and by Gary Smalls. It's called From Anger to Intimacy. It's a very powerful book.
Plus it says anger to intimacy, which is always a good thing for the fellas.
It's always a good thing for the it's always a good thing for the fellas. But the thing is to be intimate within yourself. You know what I mean? It's not always to be intimate with somebody. It's to be intimacy is that you can be with yourself. You have to take it easy on yourself, because it depends on how we grow up. Some of us grow up a little different, and so you kind of take on some things. Like for me, when I grew up, there was a lot of bad things that happened, and it's how you was taught. You know what I mean? And I was always taught that a man's not supposed to cry. I was always supposed, you taught these things, but then when you start listening to the Word of God, you start realizing that, you know what, that wasn't true at all.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like we grew up backwards. They try to make us this tough guy. You know what I mean? But everything about us shouldn't be tough.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's what it was with me. I was being tough about everything, and then one day.
So it was kind of like your go-to emotion. Like,
I
can't cry about it, so guess what? I'm going to be angry about it.
And you know what? And I got angry about it. But then one time, Pastor preached, and he said, our parents. Don't be mad at your parents for how they raised you up. They raised you the best they knew how. You see what I'm saying? So don't take it personal for how they raised you. But in the same token, now that you are out on your own and you're a grown man or you're an adult, it's time for you to take on responsibility for yourself, as opposed to trying to place blame on somebody or how you living.
So then do this for me then, right? We're about to go to commercial break, and there's still a guy out there who it's out of control. He's heard everything you said, but if there was one thing that you could say in his closing moments here to help him along, what would you tell him?
I would say, get yourself some serious help, work on yourself, be diligent, just like you are on your job, just like you are with your family. If you want to keep everything and gain everything, this is one of the potent ingredients that you want to get rid of. Anger doesn't help. Anger doesn't help you move along with your family, especially if it's out of control. If you're controlling it, you good. But if you every now and then allow yourself to get out of control, I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what can happen behind the scenes of you being out of control. Who else you can hurt besides you hurting yourself? It could be your loved one of your wife or a parenting or even one of your kids. And remembering that being angry and things that you say or do, you can't take back. You know what I mean? So you kind of so you want to sit back, think about what you're going to do, or think about what you're going to say before you say it, and don't be too quick to respond on, or react rather, not respond. Don't be too quick to react on the anger that you may have at that point in time. Because even still today, I mean, it's been years, but even still today, I'm better than where I was, but I do still get angry. Okay. You know what I mean, we are still going to get angry.
Listen, man, appreciate your time.
No problem, bro.
And this has been good. This has been good.
Amen.
All right.
Glad to be here.
So listen, you know that anger is something that, we'll do, it's there, but you've heard several times that we have to make different decisions. But we're not done yet. There's a whole lot more. Stay tuned, and we'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back to the lounge. We're going to keep things moving with our next guest, Brother Joe Nicholson. What's happening?
I am good, Greg. I am good. I'm good.
Brother's a funny word. Yes, this is my brother, so just roll with it. Just roll with it. So listen, you know that we're talking about resolving anger, and it's important that we use anger in the right way. It definitely is something that we were given that should be used when things are wrong. Unrighteousness. I mean, the whole concept behind, mothers, mad, mothers against drunk drivers. Right. That's where anger was pointed in the right direction. So, talk a little bit about how you've learned to resolve anger, to really not allow it to get out of control in your life.
It was definitely a learned experience. So to the point that you just made, it was something that I did need to learn, because I always felt justified in my anger. Something happened, there would be something that precipitated the anger. I felt that I was justified in terms of my response, and that when I felt that emotion, and we all know that anger, I guess there's a continuum. It can be from maybe mildly angry to almost like a blind rage. So, and my responses would run that gamut. There were times when I get angry, but there were other times when I would be angry almost to the point of being out of control, where the rage was blind, so to speak. But basically, I think a lot of it was either through scripture, or, as I said, through learning. So you get the word, whether it be on Sunday morning or Wednesday evening, and you begin to learn that being a child of God and salvation is more than just accepting Christ as your Savior. There are some requisite changes that you have to choose to make, and So that was basically, I guess, to answer your question, Greg. That's what I'll do. I'll answer the question rather than go on, because you may we may get back to it. But basically, it was something that I needed to learn to do.
What's interesting, and I didn't think about it until we actually are sitting here today, that we grew up in the same household. And you know, part of anger is taught, right? There's what God gave us, right, on the inside and how we should use it. But then there's the molding of it. And my style of anger is I'm the stuffer. People or situations happen,
Right.
and I tend to put it in a closet somewhere,
Right.
but it's still there.
Yeah.
And then, you know, my wife might say something, and then I'm explosive.
Right.
And she's wondering where'd that come from. All I did was move the salt shaker from here to there.
Right.
But I'm mad at about 50 things in the closet.
Right.
But that's, your style's a little bit different.
You know, my style.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think that anger is contextual. So, you know, when I'm at work, I'm less likely to get angry than I am when I'm at home.
Yeah.
I think in the context of relationship and with marriage, I handle my anger a little bit differently. I'll be a guy who, if my wife makes me angry, I might not talk to her for a couple days.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
that
so
would
we
be
do.
that's what I do.
Right.
You know.
Okay.
I had to learn that, you know, that passive type of aggression, man, that's terrible in a relationship. I had to learn that. Whereas if I'm out, and Greg, you know, growing up, my anger in those kinds of situations was different, you know, and not just, you know, when we were young kids, but even, you know, beyond high school and college, man.
Right.
You know how I'll be fighting somebody. It wouldn't be nothing to you to hear, but yeah, man, Nick was fighting at such and such, or we were at a party and Nick, you know, started fighting. That was just the way you know, just something happened, make me angry. I'm going to react to it. So I think that, you know, there are contexts which will make you respond differently, and that's part of how you begin to understand how to resolve your anger, because you're in control and you choose to react or to respond certain ways in certain situations to certain people. So so I think
that's
that
interesting.
even at a time when you feel that you're out of control, you're still in control to some degree, because I didn't respond the same way to depending on, let's say, where I was.
Oh, case in point, there are guys out there right now who, like at home, girlfriend, wife, whatever, and they react in an angry kind of way,
Right.
over time, lingering, whatever. But their wife maybe weighs half of what they weigh.
Right.
They see themselves as, you know, I'm the man, she's the woman.
Right.
But what if it was somebody that was 6'4", 300 pounds? It's amazing how in that situation they do the same thing.
Right.
And nothing happens.
Right.
So it obviously, you know, there is a choice. But one of the things I was going to ask you is, was there a defining moment for you? Was it more gradual, or was it, yo, that was messed up?
I think it was probably more gradual. I didn't have, and I've had several kinds of situations that, you know, where things happened, and and that could have been like that. It was, you know, that event. It was that episode. It was that thing I did, that thing I said, that thing I got involved in, that was precipitated by anger, and that was enough for me to say, okay, man, that's it. I got to get. But there wasn't. There was really, like I said, I kind of had to learn it, and you know, self-awareness is a huge part of dealing with your anger, because listen, anger is an emotion. Things happen, you get angry, and then do you let it manifest? Do you allow it to linger? You know, do you choose to say, okay, somebody cuts me off in traffic? This is one of the examples that, you know, Pastor, you know, he'll use in his messages.
Right.
You know, because man, you know, road rage is real.
It's crazy.
You got the most wimpy guys. They get tough behind the wheel all of a sudden. So
That's right.
it's like, you know, somebody cut me off, and then it's like, okay, do I start chasing this guy to the next 3 red lights? Or do I just, you know, take a breath and just say, all right, man, just, you know, you kind of get a hold of yourself, and you realize this is anger. I'm angry right now. And what's also interesting is when you watch somebody else do it and you see how foolish they look.
That's right.
you know, or you see someone else yelling at their wife. Not that I've ever yelled at my wife, Greg, but
I have.
yeah, well,
Not your wife, my
yeah,
wife.
right.
I shouldn't have, but
Right. So if you see, when you watch it, it's funny how it gives you perspective about how you look when the shoe's on the other foot.
Are there some things, you know, in some of the steps that you've taken, are there some things, you know what, I am not going to say that or do that in reaction? Or, like we've been talking a lot about anger in a way that, an analogy I heard was, it's like a kettle on a stove.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you put a kettle on the stove and fill it with water and turn on that fire, it takes a while before it whistles. But when I put it on there, I know with the heat, it's going to whistle. And anger for us is the same way. It doesn't come out of nowhere.
Right.
You know, so, you know, are there some things you put in place so that whether it's something that you know has been brewing or in the heat of the moment, that has helped you with your anger and getting it, you know, under control?
I think, like one, listen, I know me, and I know, you know, I know the things, I know my triggers, and I know that certain things will make me angry. So I think, again, self-awareness is big. It's important. But the other thing is, I'm not sure if you were getting at this, you know, you can have, like, you know, and this was not necessarily, I guess, you know, true for me, but you have to find a way to release that pent up kind of, I guess, emotion that might manifest itself in an angry episode. So I'm not sure if that was never really an issue for me. Like, we were basically, you know, like I'm walking around and I'm going through my day and my life, like, you know, Mr. Calm and you know, easy, smooth guy, but on the inside I'm like boiling, you know. Or like if somebody does something to me, I'm like, hey, that's okay, you know, like, but really I'm thinking, like, man, right now I'm about to reach across this globe and knock your lights out, you know. So it's like, that's not really an issue for me. For me, it's more something happened, I get angry about it, and I respond to it. But I think you can, if you're being honest with yourself, there's an instantaneous response, but I think beyond that instant, then you're beginning to make a choice about how you are responding to that thing that made you angry. I think there's a grace period in there, and it's relative to the situation. Right. But I think it's a choice to continue to just, like, you know, like my wife and I. She, like I said, I use an example. She do something to me, man, I get angry about it. But like I said, I would just maybe not talk to her for a couple. I wouldn't say I'm not going to talk to her. I would just not do it. But subconsciously, I was saying. Right. That's what I would do. So it's like I use as an example, where that, you know, like road rage, or someone say something to you at work. So are you going to get into some, you know, big protracted argument with them over you know, 15 or 20 minutes? Man, you're not even angry anymore. You're just responding to a moment that you had 10 or 15 minutes ago, or 10 or 15 seconds ago. Right. But you're choosing to allow it to play out. Well, Joe, but I know you as Nick. Yes, sir. Appreciate your time, man. Yeah, great. Appreciate your time. I'm sure that there is a guy out there that really heard what you had to say, man, and hopefully we've moved them from where they were to where they need to be. Hopefully. So thanks for coming in the lounge, man. Thanks for seeing you. All right, man. Well, there you have it, everybody. You know, we've talked about resolving anger, and there's a couple of themes that you should definitely take with you. One of them is you got to seek the Lord. That's number one. But what I heard overwhelming today is that you have to make a decision to not allow anger to destroy the relationships around you, to lead to strife and abuse and things like that. So hopefully this was helpful. I believe it was, but continue to tune in. Be strong and be blessed. See you next time.